The sledgehammer crashed through what remained of the Golden Sands Casino's lobby ceiling, sending a shower of asbestos-laced plaster down on Rachel Torres like toxic snow. But when the desperate single mother finally pried open the reinforced vault, 3 weeks after buying the condemned building for $1, she found $340 million in pristine currency that would either save her family or destroy everything she'd fought to protect. Rachel Torres stood in the parking lot of what used to be Atlantic City's most glamorous casino. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Her 9-year-old daughter Sofia, gripping her hand so tightly, it hurt. The September wind off the ocean carried the smell of salt and decay, wrapping around the skeletal remains of the Golden Sands like a burial shroud. The auction had taken exactly 7 minutes. 7 minutes for Rachel to raise her hand once, bid $1, and become the owner of 2 cents, 000 square feet of condemned real estate that the city was desperate to offload. The handful of people who'd bothered to show up had laughed. Actually laughed. One man in an expensive suit had turned to his colleague and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "The cleaning crew wouldn't take this place for free." What's she thinking? Rachel knew exactly what she was thinking. She was thinking about the eviction notice taped to their apartment door. She was thinking about her bank account with $sept left after buying Sofia's school supplies. She was thinking about the job she'd lost 3 months ago when the call center relocated to India. She was thinking that a building, any building, was better than being homeless. The demolition order gave her 90 days, 90 days before the city would tear down the Golden Sands, whether she'd cleared out or not. 90 days to salvage anything of value, sell the scrap metal and fixtures, maybe make enough to rent something, somewhere, anywhere. "Mom," Sofia whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. "It looks like a monster died here." Rachel pulled her daughter close. The child wasn't wrong. The Golden Sands had been shuttered for 2 years after Hurricane Sandy had gutted it, turning a jewel of the boardwalk into a cautionary tale. The building's art deco facade, once gleaming white and gold, was now streaked with rust and black mold. Windows gaped like missing teeth. The iconic neon sign that had spelled Golden Sands in letters 20 feet tall now hung at a dangerous angle, most of the letters dark or fallen. But it was hers. For $1 and the promise to handle all demolition costs, it was theirs. Rachel's sister Maria pulled up in her dented Toyota, rolling down the window with a face that mixed pity and anger in equal measure. "Please tell me you didn't actually go through with this insanity." "I went through with it." Rachel kept her voice steady, even as doubt clawed at her chest. Maria got out of the car, slamming the door hard enough to make Sofia flinch. "Rachel, this building is condemned." "Condemned? That means it's not safe for human habitation. You can't live here." "We're not living here. We're salvaging what we can sell. For 20 days. With a 9-year-old? Maria's voice rose, sharp with frustration. "There's asbestos, lead paint, structural damage. This place could collapse on your heads. So could our lives if we don't do something." Rachel met her sister's eyes. "I don't have options anymore, Maria. No job, no references that matter, no degree. But I have hands that can work. And now I have a building full of things people used to pay money for. Copper wiring, brass fixtures, slot machines that might still be worth something to collectors. This is my chance. This is suicide." But Maria's voice had softened, the fight draining out of her. She looked at Sofia, who stood solemn and quiet, too used to adult problems. "At least let me take Sofia. She can stay with me and Carlos while you do whatever crazy thing you're planning." "No." Sofia spoke before Rachel could. "I stay with Mum." Rachel felt her throat tighten. Sofia had already lost so much. Her father had disappeared when she was 2, leaving nothing but child support payments that stopped coming after a year. Her grandmother, Rachel's mother, had died last winter. The apartment they'd called home for 5 years was about to be someone else's. Rachel wouldn't take away the one constant left. Them. Together. "We'll be careful," Rachel promised Maria. "And this is temporary. Just until we can get enough together for a real place." Maria pulled Rachel into a fierce hug. "You're the most stubborn person I've ever known. Call me if you need anything. And I mean anything." She pressed a $1 bill into Rachel's hand. "For food. Don't argue." After Maria left, Rachel and Sofia stood facing their new reality. The Golden Sands loomed before them. Dou's stories of Art Deco architecture, slowly being reclaimed by nature and time. Rachel had done her research. Built in 1962, it had been the crown jewel of Atlantic City's golden age. Frank Sinatra had performed in its showroom. High rollers had flown in from around the world. At its peak, it had employed 2,000 people and generated millions in revenue every month. Then the newer, flashier casinos opened. Then the economy tanked. Then Hurricane Sandy delivered the final blow, flooding the first 3 floors and causing enough damage that the insurance company declared it a total loss. The owners walked away. The building sat empty, becoming a landmark of decay. Rachel pulled out the key the city clerk had given her. A simple, modern key that seemed absurdly mundane for such a massive building. The main entrance was blocked by steel plates welded over the doors, but she'd spotted a side entrance during her research, a service door that should be accessible. They made their way around the building, picking through debris and overgrown weeds. Sofia stayed close, her small hand finding Rachel's again. The service door was there, rusted but intact, and to Rachel's relief, the key worked. The door opened with a groan of metal that hadn't moved in over a decade. The smell hit them first. Mold, damp, concrete. Something chemical and wrong. Rachel pulled out the flashlight she'd brought, its beam cutting through darkness that seemed to swallow the light. "Stay right behind me," she told Sofia. "Don't touch anything." They stepped into what had been a service corridor. The concrete floor was cracked and water-stained, but solid. Pipes ran along the ceiling, some dripping water that formed puddles in the uneven floor. Graffiti covered the walls, tags from urban explorers and vandals who'd broken in over the years. Rachel followed the corridor until it opened into a larger space, what might have been a loading dock. Her flashlight swept across the vast emptiness, catching glimpses of twisted metal, collapsed sections of ceiling, and everywhere, the evidence of water damage. The hurricane had been thorough in its destruction. But as they moved deeper into the building, Rachel began to see what had once been an employee cafeteria, tables still bolted to the floor, a manager's office, filing cabinets toppled but present, a costume storage room, sequined dress hanging like ghosts on rusted racks. "Mom, look!" Sofia pointed to something glinting in Rachel's flashlight beam. Rachel approached carefully. It was a slot machine, one of hundreds that must have been in the casino. This one had fallen on its side, its chrome exterior scratched, but still bright, where the decay hadn't reached. Rachel knew vintage slot machines could be worth hundreds, sometimes thousands to collectors. The building was full of them. For the first time since the auction, hope flickered in Rachel's chest. This might actually work. They spent the rest of the day exploring the lower levels, mapping out what was accessible and what was too dangerous. Rachel made notes in a small spiral notebook, locations of copper wiring, areas with salvageable brass, rooms that might contain valuable fixtures. She photographed everything with her phone, already thinking about eBay listings and scrap metal dealers. As the sun began setting, painting the ocean beyond the broken windows in shades of gold and amber, Rachel found what she'd been looking for: a space they could temporarily occupy. A conference room on the 2nd floor. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this, far enough from the most damaged areas, with windows that still had glass, and a door that locked. It wasn't home, but it was shelter. Sofia helped her sweep out the worst of the debris using a broom Rachel had brought. They laid down the sleeping bags and camping gear Rachel had purchased with the last of their money. For dinner, they ate peanut butter sandwiches and shared an apple, sitting on the floor with a battery-powered lantern between them. "Is this an adventure, Mum?" Sofia asked, her voice small in the vast emptiness of the building. Rachel pulled her daughter close. "The biggest one yet. And you know what? We're going to be okay. Better than okay." But that night, after Sofia fell asleep, Rachel lay awake, listening to the building settle and groan around them. The wind off the ocean made the structure shudder. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. And the weight of what she'd done pressed down on her chest like concrete. She'd bought a dying building with money she didn't have, betting everything on the chance she could salvage enough to survive. And if she was wrong, if there wasn't enough value here, if the building was just a hollow shell, Rachel pushed the thoughts away. She couldn't afford doubt. Forward was the only direction that mattered now. Morning came with grey light filtering through dirty windows and the sound of seagulls screaming above the building. Rachel woke stiff and sore, the concrete floor unforgiving even through the sleeping bag. Sofia still slept, curled into a ball, her face peaceful, in a way that made Rachel's chest ache. She stepped into the hallway, stretching muscles that protested every movement. The building felt different in daylight, less ominous, but no less damaged. She could see more clearly now the scope of what she'd taken on. Collapsed ceilings, exposed wiring, entire sections that looked ready to give way. But she could also see opportunity. In the corner of what had been a janitor's closet, she spotted industrial shelving units, solid steel that scrap dealers would pay good money for. Down another hallway, she found a cache of commercial kitchen equipment, stainless steel appliances that time and water hadn't completely destroyed. Rachel spent the morning making more detailed inventories, photographing everything, creating a mental map of the building's layout. The Golden Sands was massive, far larger than she'd realized. 12 floors, each one a maze of hallways, rooms, and forgotten spaces. The casino floor dominated the first level, a vast cavern where hundreds of slot machines still stood in neat rows like soldiers waiting for orders that would never come. She was photographing a particularly ornate brass railing when she heard voices. Rachel froze, listening. Male voices, multiple, echoing from somewhere below. "Sofia," she called back toward their makeshift camp. "Stay in the room. Lock the door." Rachel moved toward the voices, her heart hammering. She hadn't expected visitors, hadn't considered that other people might have ideas about salvaging the Golden Sands. As she reached the main stairwell, she saw them. 3 men in their 30s, carrying crowbars and wearing work gloves. Clearly there for the same reason she was. "Hey," Rachel called down. "This is private property." The men looked up, surprise crossing their faces. One of them, tall with a beard and a faded band t-shirt, called back. "Yeah, we know. City's tearing it down in 3 months. Figure we'd grab what we can before the bulldozers come. I own this building." Rachel descended the stairs carefully, aware of how exposed she was. "I bought it at auction yesterday." The bearded man laughed, not unkindly. "You're the one who paid $1 for this death trap? Lady, I don't know if you're brave or crazy. Both, probably." Rachel reached the bottom of the stairs, keeping her distance. "But either way, this is my property now. You need to leave. Come on." Another man spoke up, younger, with a sleeve of tattoos. "There's enough here for everyone. We're not trying to cause trouble, just trying to make some money. Same as you. I understand that, but I'm responsible for this building now, and I can't have people coming and going. It's dangerous. Rachel kept her voice firm. I'm asking you to leave. The bearded man studied her for a long moment. Then he shrugged. All right. We'll go. But word of advice? You're going to want help getting through all this. Building this size, 3 months to clear it out? That's too much for one person. I'll manage. Yeah, I bet you will. He gestured to his companions, and they headed toward the exit. But at the door he turned back. I'm Derek, by the way. I run a salvage company. If you change your mind about help, we're in the book. Torres Salvage and Reclamation. Wait, Rachel said, the name registering. Torres? That's my name. Rachel Torres. Derek's eyebrows rose. No kidding? Small world. Any relation to Miguel Torres? Rachel felt ice form in her stomach. He was my ex-husband. Why? Because Miguel worked with my crew about 3 years ago. Good guy. Hard worker. Derek's expression shifted, becoming more cautious. He talked about his daughter sometimes. Sofia, right? The mention of Sofia's name from a stranger's mouth made Rachel's protective instincts flare. What do you know about Miguel? Just that he was trying to get his life together. Had some demons, but he was fighting them. Derek paused. Look, I don't know your situation, and it's not my business. But if you need help, with this place, the offer stands. Family discount. After Derek and his crew left, Rachel stood in the vast, empty casino floor, processing the unexpected connection. Miguel had been out of their lives for 7 years. His last known address somewhere in Philadelphia. Child support had stopped coming. Calls went unanswered. Eventually, Rachel had stopped trying, focusing instead on building a life for Sofia that didn't depend on a man who couldn't be depended on. The fact that he'd talked about Sofia to co-workers, that he'd been trying to get his life together, stirred complicated feelings. But Rachel pushed them aside. The past was the past. The present was this building, and the 29 days she had left to make it work. She spent the rest of the day doing what she did best, working. She photographed every salvageable item, researched values online using her phone's limited data, and created spreadsheets, organizing everything by potential value and difficulty of removal. By evening, she had a plan. The slot machines would go first. There were collectors who bought them, and while most wouldn't bring much, some of the vintage ones could fetch serious money. After that, the copper wiring in the walls, the brass fixtures, the commercial kitchen equipment. Layer by layer, she'd strip the golden sands down to its bones and turn every piece into cash. When she returned to their room, she found Sofia had done her homework by lantern light and was now drawing in her sketchbook. Rachel looked over her daughter's shoulder and saw what Sofia had drawn. The Golden Sands Casino. But not as it was. As it might have been. Or could be again. The building stood tall and bright, its neon sign gleaming, crowds of people streaming through doors that opened wide. It's beautiful, Rachel said softly. I think it's sad, Sofia replied. It used to be so pretty, and now it's just waiting to die. Rachel knelt beside her daughter. Or maybe it's waiting for a second chance. Over the next week, Rachel fell into a rhythm. Wake at dawn. Explore more of the building. Catalog items. Research values. Plan removal strategies. She avoided the upper floors, which were clearly the most damaged, focusing instead on the lower levels, where the structure seemed more stable. She found unexpected treasures. A manager's office on the 3rd floor had a wall safe, still locked, but potentially containing valuables. The showroom where performers had once commanded stages still had its lighting equipment, vintage pieces that specialized dealers might want. The kitchen had commercial-grade cookware that restaurants would pay for, but she also found signs of the building's darker history. Graffiti that spoke of desperation and despair, evidence that people had been living in the abandoned casino, squatters who'd left behind sleeping bags and needles and empty bottles. In what had been a security office, she found files scattered across the floor, employment records, and incident reports from the casino's final years. One file caught her attention. It was marked Security Concerns, Confidential, and dated from 2012, just before the hurricane hit. Rachel flipped through it, reading reports of suspected cheating, employee theft, and something that made her pause. Repeated concerns about access to the counting room. The counting room. Rachel had almost forgotten about it. Every casino had one. A secure room where cash was sorted, counted, and prepared for deposit. At a casino the size of the Golden Sands, that room would have processed millions of dollars. She pulled out the building plans she'd gotten from the city clerk, spreading them on the floor. There it was. Counting room and vault, located in the basement, reinforced construction, restricted access. The plans showed it as a separate structure within the building, essentially a concrete and steel box designed to be impenetrable. Rachel's heart began to beat faster. What if there was still something in that vault, money left behind in the chaos of the hurricane and the casino's closure? She knew it was unlikely. Surely, the owners would have cleared out the cash before abandoning the building. But the security reports suggested problems in those final months, chaos and confusion. She had to look. The next morning, Rachel left Sofia with Maria, telling her sister she needed to explore some of the more dangerous parts of the building. Maria had looked at her with knowing eyes, but hadn't asked questions, just pulled Sofia into a hug and promised pancakes for breakfast. The basement was a nightmare. The hurricane's floodwaters had hit this level hardest, and even years later, the evidence remained. Walls were stained 6 feet high, with waterlines. Mold grew in patterns that looked almost decorative. The smell of mildew was overwhelming, making Rachel's eyes water. She moved carefully, testing every step. The floor was slick with moisture and algae-like growth. Pipes dripped from the ceiling, the building's plumbing slowly dying. Her flashlight beam seemed weaker down here, as if the darkness was thicker, more resistant to light. The counting room wasn't hard to find. Its entrance stood out, a reinforced door that looked like it belonged in a bank, not a casino basement. The metal was rusted at the edges, but still solid. Rachel tried the handle, expecting it to be locked, and was surprised when it turned. The door opened with a shriek of metal on metal, revealing a concrete corridor. Rachel stepped inside, her flashlight revealing walls that were smooth and unpainted, designed for function over aesthetics. The corridor led to another door, this one even more substantial, and this one was locked. Rachel examined the lock, modern electronic, requiring a keycard or code. She tried the obvious combinations, the building's opening date, common default codes, but nothing worked. The door remained sealed, keeping its secrets. She was about to give up when she noticed something. The door frame, while solid, had been damaged by the flooding. Water stains showed where moisture had seeped through, and the concrete around one of the hinges had cracked. Rachel knelt down, examining it more closely. The crack was wider than it had looked at first glance, water damage having eaten away at the concrete over years of exposure. Rachel pushed against the door, testing, and felt the slightest give. The hinges were compromised. She'd need tools, real ones, and probably help. Rachel made her way back upstairs, her mind already working through the problem. If she could get that door open, if there was anything of value inside, it could change everything. But she'd need equipment to do it safely, and she'd need to be smart about it. That evening, after picking up Sofia from Maria's house, Rachel did something she hadn't wanted to do. She called Derek. Torres Salvage. His voice came through the phone. "It's Rachel Torres, from the Golden Sands, the Dollar Casino. How's that? Working out for you? Better than expected. But I have a problem that might require your expertise." Rachel explained about the counting room door. leaving out her suspicions about what might be inside. I need it opened without damaging whatever's beyond it. Can you do that? Derek was quiet for a moment. I can. But that kind of work isn't cheap. I'll pay you in salvage rights. You help me get that door open. You can take your pick of items from the building. Within reason. You trust me that much? Lady, you don't even know me. Miguel trusted you enough to talk about his daughter. That's something. Rachel surprised herself with the admission. Another pause. Then Derek said, All right. I'll be there tomorrow. Witter. And Rachel? Whatever's behind that door, we split it 50-50. That's my price. Rachel wanted to argue, but she didn't have leverage. Deal. Derek showed up the next morning with 2 of his crew and a van full of equipment. Rachel met them at the side entrance, Sofia hanging back shyly. Derek nodded to her, then gestured to his companions. This is James and Tony. They know what they're doing. Where's this door? Rachel led them down to the basement, watching as Derek examined the counting room entrance with a professional's eye. He ran his hands along the door frame, testing the damaged areas, shining his own high-powered light along the edges. You were right, he said finally. The flooding compromised the structure. We can get through here without blowing the door, but it'll take time. They worked for 3 hours. Derek was methodical, using hydraulic jacks to stress the weakened hinge points, carefully chipping away damaged concrete, all while ensuring the door itself remained intact. Rachel watched, holding flashlights when needed, learning techniques she'd never considered. Sofia sat on the stairs, sketching in her notebook, occasionally calling down questions that Derek answered patiently. Rachel noticed how he talked to her daughter, direct but kind, never condescending. It reminded her of Miguel's better moments, before everything fell apart. Finally, with a groan of metal and a cascade of concrete dust, the door gave way. Derek and his crew carefully controlled its descent, laying it flat on the corridor floor. Beyond it lay another space, this one smaller, and at its far end, the vault itself. Unlike the counting room door, the vault was pristine. Its heavy steel construction had protected it from the water damage that had destroyed so much else. It stood like a monument, gleaming dully in their flashlight beams, with its combination dial and wheel mechanism looking like it had been installed yesterday rather than decades ago. Derek whistled low. That's a Mosler Bank vault, probably from the 50s. Beautiful piece of engineering, also completely impregnable without the combination. There has to be a way, Rachel said, approaching the vault. Safes can be cracked, right? Safes, like the one in your apartment building? Sure. A vault like this? Derek shook his head. You're talking about precision engineering designed to resist every technique in the book. The combination is probably deuce digits, and the tolerances are so tight that even a professional with the right equipment would need days to crack it. Rachel felt disappointment crash over her. She'd been so close, and now this. However, Derek continued, vaults like this also have serial numbers. If you can get the original owner's documentation, they might have filed the combination with the manufacturer or with their insurance company. It's a long shot, but it's something. Rachel thought about the files she'd seen scattered through the building. The casino's records are still here, at least some of them. Maybe the combination is in the paperwork. Then that's where you start. Derek pulled out his phone and photographed the vault's serial number. I'll do some research on my end. See if I can track down the first manufacturer's records. In the meantime, you dig through whatever files you can find. One of us might get lucky. After Derek and his crew left, Rachel stood alone in front of the vault, Sofia beside her. The massive steel door seemed to mock her with its impregnability, so close to something that could change everything, but blocked by numbers she didn't have. It's like a dragon guarding treasure, Sofia said quietly. Rachel smiled despite her frustration. Then I guess we need to find the magic words to make the dragon open up. The hunt for the vault combination consumed Rachel's every waking moment. She spent days sorting through files scattered across the building, searching for anything that might relate to the counting room. Employment records, incident reports, maintenance logs, everything from the casino's final years. She worked by flashlight in dusty offices, sneezing constantly, her hands growing black with old paper and mold. Sofia helped when she wasn't at school, sorting papers into piles, her young eyes often catching details Rachel missed. They made it a game, pretending they were archaeologists, uncovering ancient secrets. But as days stretched into weeks, Rachel's hope began to fade. Meanwhile, the building continued to yield smaller treasures. Rachel sold 3 vintage slot machines to a collector in Pennsylvania for $2.4. An antique dealer in New York bought the Art Deco light fixtures from the showroom for another $3. Slowly, painfully, Rachel was building a cushion. But it wasn't enough. The demolition clock ticked down relentlessly. 60 days remaining, 45, 30, and the vault remained sealed, its secrets locked away. Maria visited one afternoon, bringing groceries and concern. She found Rachel in what had been the casino's administrative offices, surrounded by boxes of files. "You look terrible," Maria said bluntly. "When's the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're obsessed." Maria sat on a desk, surveying the chaos. "Rachel, what are you really looking for in all these papers?" Rachel wanted to lie, but exhaustion made her honest. She told Maria about the vault, about the possibility it might contain something valuable, about the combination she couldn't find. Maria listened, then said carefully, "And if there's nothing in there? If it's empty? Or just contains old ledgers and paperwork? Then I've wasted 3 weeks." Rachel rubbed her eyes. "But Maria, I can feel it. Something important is behind that door. The security reports, the way the casino closed so abruptly, the fact that the owners never came back. It all points to something. Or it points to a business that failed, and owners who walked away because there was nothing left worth fighting for. Maybe a bounder, run ridees. Probably." Rachel picked up another file. "But I have to know." That night, unable to sleep, Rachel found herself back in the basement, standing in front of the vault. She'd started talking to it. Ridiculous as that seemed, treating it like a puzzle she could solve through sheer force of will. "What are you hiding?" she whispered to the steel. "What's so important that you've kept it secret for years?" She pressed her ear against the cool metal, as if the vault might whisper its secrets. And in the silence of the basement, with only the drip of water and the groan of settling concrete, Rachel heard something. Not from the vault, but from somewhere above her. Footsteps. She froze, listening. The steps were deliberate, moving across the floor directly above the counting room. Rachel checked her watch. 2:30. No one should be here. She'd been careful about locking the building's entrances. Moving silently, Rachel crept toward the stairs, her flashlight off, using only ambient light from the few streetlights that penetrated the building's broken windows. She reached the ground floor and saw a figure silhouetted against a window, backlit by the Atlantic City night. "Who's there?" Rachel called out, trying to sound more confident than she felt. The figure turned, and Rachel's breath caught. Even in the darkness, she recognized the shape of him, the way he stood, the set of his shoulders. "Hello, Rachel." Miguel's voice, unchanged, after 7 years. Rachel's hand found the light switch for her flashlight, bathing him in sudden illumination. Miguel Torres looked older, harder, but essentially the same, thin to the point of gaunt, with the weathered skin of someone who'd lived rough. But his eyes were clear, in a way she remembered from before the addiction took hold. "How did you get in here?" Rachel demanded. "Same side entrance you use." The locks broken. Miguel held up his hands, showing he was unarmed, unthreatening. Derek told me you bought this place. I had to see it for myself. Had to see if it was really you. What do you want? To talk. To see Sofia. His voice cracked on their daughter's name. To explain. 7 years, Miguel. 7 years of nothing. No calls. No money. No birthday cards. Nothing. Rachel felt the anger she'd buried rise hot in her throat. And now you show up here, in the middle of the night. Because what? You're curious? Because I heard you bought a condemned casino for $1, and I thought either you'd lost your mind or you knew something. Miguel stepped closer, and Rachel instinctively stepped back. He noticed and stopped, pain crossing his face. Rachel, I know I don't have the right to ask you anything, but I need to know. What are you really doing here? Surviving. Same thing I've been doing since you left. Derek said you've been obsessed with the vault in the counting room. That you've been tearing the place apart, looking for the combination. Miguel's voice dropped. Rachel, what do you think is in there? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Rachel studied her ex-husband's face. Why do you care? Miguel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. Because I used to work here. Before Sofia was born, before everything went to hell. I was on the security team. Rachel felt the ground shift under her feet. You never told me that. I didn't tell you a lot of things. Wasn't proud of it. Miguel ran a hand through his hair. A gesture Rachel remembered. I was there the night of the hurricane. The night everything ended. Tell me. Miguel looked around the ruined casino, memories clearly playing across his face. The Golden Sands wasn't just a casino, Rachel. It was a money laundering operation for some very bad people. The legitimate business was real, but there was another layer underneath. Dark money flowing through, getting cleaned, coming out the other side looking respectable. Rachel's mouth went dry. How much money? Millions. Tens of millions. Maybe more. I don't know. I was just security. I didn't see the full picture. Miguel continued, his voice gaining strength. But I saw enough to know that when Hurricane Sandy was coming, when the order to evacuate came, the bosses panicked. They didn't have time to move everything. Didn't have time to clean it all out properly. So, they left it. They sealed it in the vault, with plans to come back after the storm passed. But the storm was worse than anyone expected. The casino was destroyed, and in the chaos that followed, the owners, the real owners, they got arrested. Federal investigation into their other operations. The Golden Sands became evidence, tied up in legal proceedings. They couldn't come back for the money without admitting it existed. Rachel sank onto a nearby slot machine, her legs suddenly unable to support her. How much, Miguel? How much is in that vault? I don't know the exact amount, but the night of the evacuation, I helped security managers move the last of it down there. Cash, bonds, gold, even some drugs they hadn't moved yet. Everything they couldn't explain away. Rachel, if even half of what I saw is still in there. He trailed off. Why are you telling me this? Why now? Miguel's face twisted with emotion. Because for 7 years, I've been trying to get clean, trying to become someone Sofia could be proud of, and failing, over and over. But when Derek told me you'd bought this place, that you were down here digging for something, I realized this was my chance. My chance to finally give you and Sofia something real. The combination to that vault. Rachel's heart stuttered. You have the combination? I memorized it. Hurricane night. The vault was already mostly sealed, but the managers kept having to open it to add more. They used an emergency override code, shorter than the main combination. 8 digits instead of 12. I watched them enter it dozens of times that night. Miguel pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. I wrote it down the next day, thinking maybe I could use it someday. But I never did. Couldn't bring myself to come back here alone, to face what I'd been part. It's held out the paper. Rachel stared at it, like it might be poisonous. The money in there, she said carefully. It's not clean. It's from criminal activity. Some of it, yeah, but some of it's just cash from the casino's legitimate operations, mixed in with the dirty money. Once it's in the federal government's hands, does it really matter where it came from? Miguel's voice was urgent. Rachel, you could turn this in. Report it. There are whistleblower rewards for this kind of thing. You could legally claim a percentage. Or, I could be charged with something. Theft, receiving stolen property. Who knows? Rachel stood, pacing. Miguel, this is insane. It's a chance. The only chance you've had in years. He pressed the paper into her hand. Take it. Use it. Don't tell anyone I was here. As far as anyone knows, you found the combination in the building's files. You report what's in the vault. You work with the authorities. You do everything right. And maybe, just maybe, you and Sofia get something out of this nightmare. Rachel looked down at the paper in her hand. 8 numbers written in Miguel's familiar handwriting. Why are you doing this? Really? Because I owe you 7 years. Because I abandoned my daughter when she needed me most. Because I've been a coward and a failure, and this is the one thing I can do that might actually help. Miguel's voice broke. And because despite everything, I still love you both. I always have. Rachel felt tears threaten, but pushed them back. If I do this, if I open that vault, you can't be part of it. Can't be anywhere near it. The complications of you being involved. I know. I'll disappear again. But Rachel? He waited until she looked up at him. Tell Sofia, I'm sorry. Tell her I'm trying to be better. And tell her I loved her every single day, even when I couldn't show it. Then he was gone, slipping back into the darkness like he'd never been there at all. Rachel didn't sleep for the rest of that night. She sat in the counting room, staring at the vault, the paper with 8 numbers clutched in her hand. Miguel's confession had recontextualized everything. This wasn't just about salvaging a dying building. It was about money that had been hidden, laundered, stolen from the legitimate economy, and squirreled away by people who operated outside the law. And now she held the key to unlocking it. As dawn broke, Rachel made her decision. She would open the vault, yes, but she would do it the right way, with witnesses, with documentation, with a clear plan for what came after. She wasn't a criminal, and she wouldn't become one, no matter how desperately she needed money. She called Derek first. I found the combination. There was a pause. Where? In the building's files, written on the back of an old maintenance log. The lie came easily, practiced in her mind 100 times through the sleepless night. Can you be here in an hour? I want, in witnesses when we open it. I'm not sure that's smart, Rachel. If there's anything valuable in there, you're just giving other people a claim to it. I'm protecting myself. Whatever's in that vault, I want multiple people confirming I didn't touch it, didn't tamper with it, didn't do anything except document it. Rachel's voice was firm. 1 hour. Bring your crew. Next, she called Agent Patricia Reeves at the FBI field office. She'd gotten the agent's number from Derek, who'd mentioned that Reeves had been investigating the Golden Sands' previous owners for years. The case was old, mostly cold, but Reeves had never let it go. Agent Reeves, my name is Rachel Torres. I'm the current owner of the Golden Sands Casino in Atlantic City, the woman who bought it for $1. Reeves' voice was neutral, giving nothing away. I've been wondering when you'd call. Why would you expect me to call? Because anyone who buys that building either doesn't know its history or knows it too well. And I had a feeling you were the kind of person who'd dig deep enough to find the interesting parts. Rachel heard papers rustling. What did you find, Ms. Torres? I'd rather show you in person. Can you be at the Golden Sands in an hour? I can be there in 30 minutes. Don't touch anything until I arrive. The hour that followed was the longest of Rachel's life. She sent Sofia to Maria's house with instructions to stay there until Rachel called. She paced the counting room, rehearsing what she'd say, how she'd explain finding the combination. The lie had to be believable, simple enough to stick to under pressure. Derek arrived first, with James and Tony. They set up lights, making the basement area almost bright, banishing the shadows that had made it feel like a tomb. They didn't talk much, sensing Rachel's nervousness. Agent Reeves appeared 20 minutes later, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an air of barely contained energy. She examined the vault, counting room, the building's layout with the practiced gaze of someone who'd thought about this place for years. The Golden Sands has been a white whale for our office, Reeves said, running her hand along the vault door. We knew the previous owners were using it for money laundering, but we could never prove the extent of it. When the hurricane hit, and they got arrested on other charges, this place became evidence. But by the time we could legally access it, everything valuable had supposedly been removed or destroyed by flood damage. Supposedly, Rachel echoed. We always suspected they'd left something behind. Something they couldn't retrieve without incriminating themselves. Reeves turned to Rachel. And now you're telling me you can open this vault? Rachel held up the paper. I found this in an old maintenance log. 8 numbers. Could be the emergency override code. Reeves examined the paper without touching it. Where exactly did you find this? 3rd floor. Executive. Office. There were files scattered everywhere. Maintenance logs, security reports. This was written on the back of a page dated August 2012, right before the hurricane. It was a good lie, detailed enough to be believable, vague enough that specifics couldn't be checked. Reeves studied Rachel's face, and for a moment, Rachel was certain the agent could see right through her. Then, Reeves nodded. All right. Let's see what we have. Rachel approached the vault with trembling hands. She'd never opened a safe, never worked with a combination lock beyond a high school locker. But the Mosler vault was surprisingly straightforward, elegant in its simplicity. The dial turned smoothly, still well-maintained despite years of disuse. She entered the first number. A soft click. Second number. Another click. By the 4th number, she could hear breathing behind her as Derek, his crew, and Agent Reeves leaned in. 8 numbers. 8 clicks. And then a deeper, more final sound as the locking mechanism disengaged. Rachel gripped the vault's wheel and turned. It moved with surprising ease, mechanical precision engineered into every part. The heavy door swung outward on counterweights, revealing darkness beyond. Derek moved forward with a flashlight, its beam cutting into the vault's interior. Rachel heard his sharp intake of breath, heard Tony whisper a curse, heard Agent Reeves say, "Holy Mother of." The vault was full. Not just full, packed floor to ceiling with the remnants of a criminal empire. Cash in shrink-wrapped bundles, stacked like bricks. Safety deposit boxes, dozens of them, labeled with numbers and dates. Metal cases that looked like they contained something heavier than paper. And, in the back, gleaming dully in the flashlight beam, gold bars stamped with various mint marks. "Don't touch anything," Reeves barked, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling this in. Torres, step back from the vault. You too, Derek. Everyone stays where I can see them." Rachel backed away, her mind struggling to process what she'd just seen. The amount of money. It had to be in the hundreds of millions, maybe more. Enough to change her life 1,000 times over. Enough to destroy her if she made one wrong move. More FBI agents arrived within the hour, followed by forensic accountants, evidence specialists, and eventually a bureau assistant director who looked at the vault's contents and immediately called Washington. The basement became a controlled chaos of documentation, photography, and careful inventory. Rachel and Derek were separated, each questioned individually about how the vault had been found, how the combination had been discovered, every detail of the process. Rachel stuck to her story, simple and consistent. She'd found numbers on an old maintenance log, recognized them as possibly being a safe combination, decided to try them. Pure luck. Agent Reeves questioned her the most intensely, clearly suspicious but unable to find holes in the story. You understand, this is all evidence in multiple ongoing investigations, Reeves said. Nothing from this vault can be removed without proper chain of custody documentation. You don't get to just take something because you found it. I understand, but Reeves paused. There are federal whistleblower statutes that apply to the recovery of assets connected to criminal activity. If even a portion of what's in that vault is connected to the cases we've been building, you could be entitled to a significant finder's fee, percentage based on the recovered value. Rachel's voice came out as barely a whisper. How much? Depends on a lot of factors, but preliminary estimates of the vault's contents are in the $340 million range. Reeves watched Rachel's face carefully. Standard whistleblower percentage would be 10 to 30%, depending on circumstances. You're looking at potentially $30 to $100 million, Ms. Torres. The numbers were too large to comprehend. Rachel felt dizzy, her vision narrowing to a tunnel. Derek caught her arm, steadying her. Breathe, he said quietly. Just breathe. Over the next few days, the Golden Sands became the center of a media storm. News helicopters circled overhead. Reporters camped outside. The story had everything. A desperate single mother, a condemned casino, a fortune in hidden criminal assets. It was catnip for the 24-hour news cycle. Rachel refused all interviews, following the advice of Diana Walsh, the attorney Agent Reeves had recommended. Diana was sharp, experienced in whistleblower cases, and absolutely clear about Rachel's position. You don't say anything to anyone except through me, Diana instructed. The vault's contents are evidence in ongoing criminal investigations. Your role is that of a good citizen who made an important discovery and immediately reported it to authorities. Nothing more, nothing less. What about Miguel? Rachel asked in the privacy of Diana's office. Diana's expression sharpened. What about him? Rachel told her everything. Miguel's appearance, his confession about working at the casino, the combination he'd provided, all of it. Diana listened without interrupting, her face giving nothing away. When Rachel finished, Diana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Miguel doesn't exist in this story. He was never here. Never told you anything. You found those numbers in the building's files. Exactly as you reported. Miguel's involvement only complicates your legal position and potentially exposes him to criminal liability. But he helped me. Without him, you would have found those numbers eventually. Maybe in the actual files. Maybe somewhere else. The point is, bringing him into this helps no one and potentially hurts everyone, including him. Diana leaned forward. Rachel, I understand you feel like you owe him honesty, but the truth is, Miguel abandoned you and Sofia for 7 years. He gave you information he had no legal right to possess, and then he disappeared again. Protecting him now isn't dishonesty. It's pragmatism. Rachel knew Diana was right, but it still felt wrong. Everything about this situation felt wrong, even as it might finally set them free. The inventory of the vault took 3 weeks. Federal accountants worked in shifts, cataloging every item, tracing serial numbers, documenting the chain of evidence. As the full scope emerged, even hardened investigators were impressed. $340 million in total assets. roughly sent cat of Inc.'s $1 million in cash. Most of it still usable, despite years of storage. Another sent Vinc $1 million in bearer bonds, untraceable securities that were as good as cash. Trent $1 million in gold bars, and Dick's $1 million in jewelry, artwork, and other valuables. All of it traceable to the criminal organizations that had used the Golden Sands as a money laundering front. All of it now subject to federal forfeiture laws. Agent Reeves explained it to Rachel in simple terms. The government will seize all of this as proceeds of criminal activity. It goes into the Asset Forfeiture Fund, which is then used for law enforcement purposes and victim compensation. But because you discovered it and reported it, you're entitled to a whistleblower reward. How much? The Justice Department is recommending 25%. That's $4.25 million, Ms. Torres. Rachel sat in stunned silence. $4.25 million. It was more than she could have dreamed, more than seemed possible. It was generational wealth, the kind of money that could change not just her life, but Sofia's and her children's children. There's a catch, Reeves continued. The vault also contained evidence of ongoing crimes, drug trafficking records, money laundering ledgers, communications that implicate people who are still active in criminal enterprises. Because of that evidence, some of those people are very interested in you. Interested how? Interested in whether you saw anything that might identify them. Interested in whether you copied any documents. Interested in silencing potential witnesses. Reeves' voice was matter of fact. We're recommending you enter protective custody until the trials are complete. For how long? 18 months. Maybe 2 years. It's not prison. You'd have freedom of movement within certain parameters. But you'd need to relocate, change identities, temporarily, limit contact with people from your previous life. Rachel thought of Sofia, of Maria, of the fragile stability they'd finally found. I need to think about this. You have 24 hours. After that, you're on your own, and I can't guarantee your safety. That evening, Rachel sat with Sofia in their motel room. The Golden Sands had been completely seized by the federal government, turned into an active crime scene. They'd been moved to a better motel, expenses covered by the FBI. But it was still temporary, still uncertain. Mom, Sofia asked, curled up beside Rachel on the bed. Are we going to be rich? It looks like it, baby. Like mansion rich. Or just new shoes rich. Rachel laughed. Despite everything. More than new shoes rich. A lot more. Sofia was quiet, processing. Then she said, I liked our castle. The Golden Sands. It was scary sometimes, but it was ours. I know, sweetheart. But sometimes we have to let go of things, even things we care about. Because of the money? Because of what the money represents. A chance for us to be safe, to not have to worry anymore. Rachel pulled Sofia closer. But Sofia, the money comes with complications. We might have to move away for a while. Live somewhere new. Would that be okay? Sofia looked up at her with those serious eyes. As long as we're together, it's okay. The next morning, Rachel called Agent Reeves and agreed to protective custody. Within 48 hours, they were on a plane to Phoenix. New names, new identities, new lives waiting in the Arizona desert. 18 months passed, in a strange limbo. Rachel and Sofia, now Rebecca and Sarah Miller, lived in a suburb of Phoenix that could have been anywhere in America. Identical houses on identical streets, shopping at identical strip malls. The FBI stipend covered their expenses, and Rachel didn't have to work, which meant for the first time in years, she could focus entirely on being Sofia's mother. They fell into new routines. Sofia, now Sarah, thrived in her new school, making friends easily the way children do. Rachel took online courses in business management, preparing for the future when they could reclaim their lives. They visited the Grand Canyon, learned to hike, discovered a love for desert landscapes that neither had expected. But underneath the normalcy, they were waiting for the trials to conclude, for the criminal organizations to be dismantled, for the moment when it would be safe to be Rachel and Sofia Torres again. The trials, when they happened, made national news. The Golden Sands Vault had provided prosecutors with evidence linking dozens of individuals to money laundering, drug trafficking, and racketeering. One by one they fell. Casino executives, organized crime figures, corrupt officials who'd looked the other way. Rachel was never called to testify. Her role had been simply to discover and report, nothing more. The evidence spoke for itself. When the verdicts came down, guilty across the board, Agent Reeves called personally. "It's over. You're free to reclaim your identities and your lives. The whistleblower reward will be processed within 90 days. Rachel felt something unclench in her chest. A tension she'd been carrying for so long, she'd forgotten it was there. What about safety? Are we still at risk? The organizations have been dismantled. The principals are in federal prison. There's always some residual risk, but it's minimal now." Reeves paused. "You did good work, Ms. Torres. You could have taken that money and run, or worse, tried to, keep it quiet. Instead, you did the right thing. That takes courage." After hanging up, Rachel sat in the Arizona house that had been their shelter, their hiding place, their temporary home. It was time to go back, to reclaim who they were. But part of her wondered, after everything that had happened, who was she now? They returned to Atlantic City on a gray November morning, almost 2 years to the day since Rachel had bought the Golden Sands for $1. The city looked the same, the familiar skyline of casinos rising above the boardwalk, the ocean stretching endlessly gray. The Golden Sands was gone, demolished months ago, the lot now empty, except for a chain-link fence and a sign announcing future development. Rachel stood at the fence, Sofia beside her, looking at the space where their castle had been. "It's sad," Sofia said quietly. "Endings usually are," Rachel agreed, "but they make room for new beginnings." Maria was waiting at her house, and when she opened the door and saw them, she burst into tears. "You're really back. You're really okay. We're really okay." Rachel hugged her sister fiercely. Better than okay. The whistleblower reward came through 3 weeks later. Quate, winked $5 million. Deposited into an account that Rachel had trouble believing was real. Diana Walsh helped her set up trusts, investments, structures, to ensure the money would be protected and would grow. "What are you going to do?" Deanna asked over coffee. Legal documents signed and notarized. Rachel had been thinking about this question for 2 years. "I want to buy buildings, not to flip them or tear them down, but to restore them. Atlantic City has dozens of abandoned properties, places with history and bones that just need someone to care enough to save them. That's a lot of work. I like work, and I'm good at seeing value where other people just see wreckage." Rachel smiled. "I learned that from a condemned casino." She started small, a historic house in the neighborhood where she'd grown up, abandoned for a decade. She bought it, renovated it meticulously, and turned it into affordable housing for single mothers trying to find their footing. Then another building, and another, each one a project that employed local workers and created homes for people who needed them. Derek's salvage company got contracts for all of them. He'd become a friend over the past 2 years, checking in regularly, making sure Rachel and Sofia were okay. When Rachel told him about her plans, he'd offered his expertise without hesitation. "You're building something good," he said, watching crews restore a turn-of-the-century apartment building. Miguel would have been proud. Rachel had wondered when someone would mention Miguel. "Have you heard from him?" "Now and then. He's been clean for 18 months, working construction in Philadelphia." Asking about Sofia. Derek glanced at Rachel. He wants to see her, but he won't reach out unless you say it's okay. Rachel was quiet, thinking about forgiveness, about second chances, about the complicated math of family. Tell him to call me. No promises, but we can talk. Sofia had grown during their time away. No longer a child, but not quite a teenager, taller, more confident, but still with that serious way of looking at the world. She'd started drawing again. Not just sketches now, but full illustrations. Stories told in pictures. One evening, Rachel found Sofia working on a new drawing. It showed the golden sands, not as it had been in ruin, but as it might have been at its peak. The building stood proud and bright, its neon sign glowing, people streaming through its doors. But in Sofia's version, the people weren't gamblers. They were families, children, regular people finding shelter and hope. It's beautiful, Rachel said. It's what the golden sands gave us, Sofia replied. Not the money, the chance to be something different. Rachel thought about that late into the night. The $250 million had changed there. Practical circumstances, yes. But the real transformation had been internal. She'd learned that she could be brave when it mattered, that she could make hard choices and live with the consequences, that she was more than her circumstances, more than her worst moments. The call from Miguel came on a Saturday afternoon. Rachel let it ring 3 times before answering, steeling herself for whatever came next. Rachel. His voice was different, stronger, with a clarity that had been absent before. Thank you for letting me call. Derek says you're doing well. 18 months clean. It's not perfect, but it's better than I've been in years. He paused. I've been in therapy, working through a lot of things. One of the things I've learned is that I can't undo the past. Can't take back the years I wasn't there. But I can try to be better going forward, if you'll let me. This isn't about me, Miguel. It's about Sofia. I know. And I know I don't have the right to ask for anything. But, Rachel, I would like to see her. Not to disrupt her life. Not to try to play father after all these years. Just to let her know I'm here. That I never stopped caring, even when I couldn't show it. Rachel looked out the window at Sofia, playing in the yard with a dog they'd adopted, her laughter carrying on the autumn air. I'll ask her. If she says yes, we can arrange something. But Miguel, you need to understand. You hurt her. You hurt both of us. If you come back into her life, it has to be steady. No promises you can't keep. No grand gestures that fade away. Just consistent presence, if you can manage it. I can manage it. I promise. Sofia, when asked, was quieter than Rachel expected. She didn't jump at the chance, but she didn't refuse either. She asked questions, thoughtful ones, about why Miguel had left, where he'd been, what had changed. Rachel answered as honestly as she could, not making excuses, but providing context. Your father made mistakes. A lot of them. But people can change if they work hard enough at it. Like we changed? Exactly like we changed. They met at a park, neutral territory. Miguel showed up early, nervous, clutching a wrapped package. When Sofia appeared, Rachel watched his face crumble and reform, emotions playing across it like weather. Hi, Sofia. His voice cracked on her name. Hi. Sofia studied him with that direct gaze. Mom says, you've been getting better. I'm trying. Every day. Miguel held out the package. I brought you something. It's not much. But. Sofia unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a sketchbook, professional quality, with pencils and charcoals. Mum says you like to draw now. I thought maybe. Thank you. Sofia clutched the sketchbook. It's perfect. They walked together, the 3 of them. Conversation stilted at first, but slowly finding rhythm. Miguel asked about school, about Sofia's drawings, about her time in Arizona. He didn't try to justify his absence or minimize his mistakes. He just listened, really listened. in a way Rachel remembered from their earliest days together. As the sun set, turning the sky pink and gold, Miguel knelt down to Sofia's level. "I want you to know something. Every day I was gone, I thought about you. Every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary Tuesday. I know thinking about you isn't the same as being there, but I want you to know you were never forgotten. Not once, not ever." Sofia was quiet, processing. Then she said, "You helped Mom find the money in the vault, didn't you? I heard you talking that night." Rachel's breath caught. She hadn't known Sofia had been awake, had heard Miguel's confession. Miguel looked at Rachel, then back to Sofia. "Yes, I did. Why? Because I owed your mother everything, and I had nothing to give her except information. And because I wanted to do something, finally, that might help, instead of hurt." Sofia nodded slowly. "Thank you for helping us. I'm glad we have a house now. And the dog? You have a..." Miguel smiled. "What's his name?" "Golden. Because he's gold-colored, and because of where we found him." Sofia glanced at Rachel. "Mum says, sometimes broken things can be fixed if you're patient enough. Your mum's a smart woman." As they said goodbye, Sofia surprised Rachel by hugging Miguel. It was brief, tentative, but it was real. And when they walked back to the car, Sofia said, "Can we see him again? Next week, maybe? If he shows up, yes. He'll show up," Sofia said with certainty. "He's different now. I can tell." Over the months that followed, Miguel did show up, every week, exactly when he said he would. The meetings were short at first, gradually lengthening as trust rebuilt. He got a job in Atlantic City, working with Derek's crew, steady employment with people who knew his history and gave him a chance anyway. Rachel watched from a distance, protective, but allowing space for Sofia and Miguel to form their own relationship. It wasn't the family they'd been, but it was something new. Something built on honesty instead of hope. One year after returning to Atlantic City, Rachel stood in front of her latest project, the old Atlantic Hotel, a historic building that had been abandoned for 20 years. It was bigger than anything she'd attempted before, a genuine challenge, but she'd learned she was good at challenges. Derek approached, blueprints in hand. "You sure about this one? It's going to be expensive, even with your resources." "I'm sure." Rachel looked up at the building's ornate facade, seeing past the decay to the possibility underneath. Every building has a second act if someone cares enough to write it. "Speaking of second acts," Derek said carefully, "Miguel's thinking about proposing to his girlfriend. Asked me if I thought he should." Rachel felt a pang of something. Not quite jealousy, but close to it. "What did you tell him?" "Told him to ask himself if he was doing it for the right reasons. If he'd earned it." Derek glanced at Prost. "Her. You okay with that?" "I'm okay with Miguel being happy. And Sofia deserves to see him build a healthy relationship." Rachel smiled. "We're all writing our second acts, Derek. Might as well write good ones." Construction on the Atlantic Hotel began in spring. Rachel hired locally, prioritizing workers who needed chances the way she once had. The project became a community effort, with neighborhood residents stopping by to watch progress, to share memories of the hotel in its heyday. Sofia started high school, her talent for art recognized by teachers who encouraged her to pursue it seriously. She talked about art school, about becoming an illustrator, about telling stories through pictures the way Rachel told them through buildings. "You gave me this," Sofia said one evening, showing Rachel her latest piece, a graphic novel-style sequence showing their journey from the condemned casino to their current life. "You showed me that endings can be beginnings." Rachel pulled her daughter close, feeling the weight and wonder of everything they'd survived. "We gave it to each other, baby. Every hard choice, every scary moment, we faced it together." 2 years after the whistleblower reward, Rachel was invited to speak at a conference on urban renewal. She stood before an audience of developers, city planners, and activists, and told her story, not the sanitized version, but the real one. A desperate single mother, buying a condemned building for $1, finding a fortune, and choosing to use it to lift others, instead of just herself. The golden sands taught me something crucial, she said to the silent room. Buildings aren't just structures of wood and stone. They're repositories of stories, of lives lived, of chances taken. When we abandon them, we abandon all of that history and possibility. She clicked to the next slide, showing a restored historic home in Atlantic City, now housing 3 families. But when we choose restoration over demolition, when we see value where others see only cost, we're not just saving buildings, we're preserving community memory and creating futures for people who desperately need them. The presentation ended with a photograph of the empty lot, where the golden sands once stood. Some buildings can't be saved. The golden sands was too damaged, too far gone. But it gave me everything anyway. Shelter when I needed it, purpose when I'd lost it, and a fortune that let me build something more valuable than money could buy. A legacy of second chances. The standing ovation surprised her. Rachel had never thought of herself as inspirational, just as someone who'd done what needed doing. But as people crowded around afterward with questions and cards, and offers to collaborate, she realized she'd become something she'd never imagined. A voice for the voiceless, a champion for buildings and people others had given up on. That evening, Rachel walked alone along the boardwalk, watching the sunset paint the Atlantic, gold and crimson. The casino lights were beginning to glow, drawing in the evening crowds. Atlantic City, for all its struggles, still knew how to put on a show. She found herself standing where the golden sands had been. The lot was still empty, surrounded by chain-link fence and construction signs promising future development. But Rachel could see it as it had been. The grand facade, the neon sign, the promise of glamour and fortune. And she could see it as it had become for her. A condemned casino that sheltered a desperate mother. A vault that held a fortune. A building that saved her by letting her save herself. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty lot. To the ghost of what had been. A voice behind her said, "Talking to yourself? That's a sign, you know." Rachel turned to find Agent Reeves, now retired, standing with a smile on her face. "What brings you to Atlantic City?" "Curiosity. Wanted to see what you'd done with that windfall." Reeves gestured up the street, toward a corner, restored apartment building that Rachel had completed 6 months ago. "Heard you've been busy, helping people, saving buildings, trying to. More than trying. You're succeeding." Reeves joined her at the fence. "You know, in 20 years with the Bureau, I've seen a lot of people come into sudden money. Most of them don't use it well. They either destroy themselves with excess, or lock it away and let it make them paranoid. But you're actually doing good with it. I had good teachers. People who showed me what it meant to stand up, even when it was hard." Rachel looked at Reeves. "You were one of them. You could have made my life a lot more difficult during the investigation. You chose not to. I recognized someone trying to do the right thing, that deserves support, not suspicion." Reeves was quiet for a moment. "The man who gave you the vault combination. Miguel. He ever resurface?" Rachel's heart skipped, but her face stayed neutral. "I found those numbers in the buildings in eyes. Files." "Of course you did." Reeves smiled slightly. "And if hypothetically someone had given you that information, someone with knowledge of the casino's operations, well, that person made a good choice in giving it to you. You did exactly what should have been done with it. Hypothetically." "Hypothetically." Reeves turned to leave, then paused. "Your daughter, she doing okay?" "Better than okay. She's thriving." "Good. That's what matters in the end. Not the money, not the buildings. The people we protect, And the lives we improve. Reeves nodded once. Take care of yourself, Rachel Torres. As the retired agent walked away, Rachel felt a weight lift that she hadn't known she was carrying. The last thread of worry about Miguel's involvement, about whether her story would hold, had been severed. Reeves knew the truth, or guessed it, and had chosen to let it stand. Some lies, told for the right reasons, deserved to remain undisturbed. Rachel's phone buzzed. Sofia, texting from home. Mom, Miguel's here. He brought his girlfriend. She's really nice. Come home? Rachel smiled, texted back that she was on her way, and turned away from the empty lot. The past was behind her, honored but not defining. The future stretched ahead, full of buildings to restore, and lives to help, and second chances to offer. She'd bought a condemned casino for $1, and found $340 million in its vault. But the real treasure hadn't been the money. It had been discovering that she was stronger than her circumstances, braver than her fears, and capable of building something meaningful from ruins. 5 years after that $1 purchase, Rachel stood in front of the Torres Foundation's headquarters, a restored Victorian mansion that had once been slated for demolition. The foundation provided housing assistance, job training, and support for single mothers trying to build stable lives for their children. The grand opening drew media attention, but Rachel had learned to handle that. She stood at the podium, Sofia beside her, now 17, and already accepted to art school, and spoke about second chances and the power of seeing value where others saw only waste. The Golden Sands Casino was never supposed to save anyone, Rachel said. It was condemned, dangerous, worthless. Everyone who saw me buy it thought I was insane. Maybe I was. But that building, that supposedly worthless piece of real estate, gave me more than shelter or money. It gave me proof that nothing is too broken to matter, and no one is too lost to find their way back. In the audience, she saw Derek and his family, Maria and her husband, Agent Reeves, who'd come out of retirement for the occasion, and in the back, Miguel with his wife, both smiling with genuine pride. They'd become friends over the years, co-parents who'd learned to work together for Sofia's benefit. After the speeches and the ribbon cutting, after the tours and the photographs, Rachel found a quiet moment in what would be her new office. The room had a view of the Atlantic, endless and grey, the same ocean that had raged through the Golden Sands and changed everything. Sofia knocked softly before entering. Pretty good turnout. Pretty good, Rachel agreed. Sofia sat on the desk's edge, a gesture so familiar from her childhood. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever wish things had been different? That you hadn't needed to buy that casino? That we hadn't had to go through all that? Rachel considered the question carefully. The struggles were real, and I wouldn't wish them on anyone. But the person I became through those struggles, the life we built, the people we've been able to help, I wouldn't trade that. Sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most meaningful destinations. That's very philosophical. I've had a lot of time to think about it. Rachel pulled Sofia into a hug. Besides, if things had been different, I wouldn't have this moment. You, starting college. Me, running a foundation. Miguel, present and sober. A family that works even though it doesn't look like anyone's idea of normal. I'll take this ending over any other. It's not an ending, Mom. It's just another beginning. Rachel laughed. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. As the sun set over Atlantic City, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, Rachel Torres looked out at the city that had witnessed her lowest moment and her greatest triumph. Somewhere in the distance, the boardwalk casinos lit up, drawing in another night's worth of dreamers and gamblers. But Rachel had learned that the biggest gambles weren't taken at tables with cards and chips. They were taken by desperate people making impossible choices, by mothers protecting their children, by those who chose to see value where others saw only waste. She'd bet everything on a condemned building and won more than money. She'd won herself back, found her purpose, and built a legacy that would outlast any fortune. The Golden Sands was gone, demolished, and forgotten by most. But its ghost lived on in every family housed, every single mother given support, every second chance offered through the foundation that bore its legacy. Some buildings are meant to stand forever, others are meant to fall so something better can rise in their place. The Golden Sands had fallen, yes, but from its ruins, Rachel had built something that would endure, proof that every ending holds a beginning, that every demolition makes space for restoration, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is look at what everyone else has discarded and say, this is worth saving, including yourself. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.